Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into something really personal and, frankly, incredibly important. We're talking about shame. Specifically, the kind of overwhelming shame that survivors of complex trauma live with every day. Really understanding this internal world is the very first step, so let's get into it.
Yeah, you heard that right. 100%. That's a quote from trauma specialist Tim Fletcher, and it's just staggering. It tells you right away that we're not talking about some minor side effect here. This is a central, almost unavoidable part of the experience. The more trauma someone has been through, the deeper that shame runs. So to really get a handle on this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we're going to redefine shame not as a feeling, but as a core belief. Then we'll look at the emotional mess it creates. After that, we'll dive into what I call the shame machine the brain builds to cope. We'll also untangle shame from its healthier cousin, guilt. And finally, we'll see how this whole thing just locks itself into a cycle that's really, really hard to break.
Okay, so let's start with what might be the biggest misunderstanding about shame. We tend to think of it as just, an emotion, like being sad or angry. But it is so much deeper than that.
Here's the real definition. Shame is a core belief. It's this deep, gut-level conviction that you, at your very center, are worthless, that you're unlovable, fundamentally flawed. And here's the most important part. This isn't about something you did. It's a belief about who you are. It's a direct attack on your very identity.
So even though shame itself is a belief, you can think of it like a factory. And the only thing this factory produces are some of the most painful, difficult emotions a human being can possibly feel. It's like this constant internal storm. Which brings us to section 2. So if you truly believe that you are fundamentally not good enough, what does that do to you? What kind of emotional life does it actually create? Let's take a closer look.
Well, the output it's relentless, and it's almost all negative. We're talking about this intense, chronic emotional pain. A constant fear and anxiety that no one will ever really want you. A deep, heavy depression that comes from just not liking yourself. In some cases, it can even lead to self-harm, because the self-hatred is just so powerful. And it doesn't stop there. It can bubble up as anger, jealousy of others, envy for the lives they seem to have, all leading to this feeling of complete and utter hopelessness.
And this is what makes it feel so impossible, right? If you do something wrong, you can apologize. You can try to fix it. But if you believe that you are the thing that's wrong, how do you fix your own existence? For someone trapped in shame, there's no obvious solution, which makes all those painful emotions feel totally permanent.
So faced with this impossible problem, the brain does what it's good at. It builds a system to try and manage everything. But here's the tragic irony. This system, this internal machine it creates, actually ends up making the shame even stronger. It's a solution that just makes the problem worse.
Okay, so let's unpack this machine. It's got 4 main parts. At the very center, you have your real self, that core part of you that just wants to be loved and accepted for who you are. But since trauma taught you that your real self is unacceptable, the brain creates the critic. This is that nasty inner voice that's always telling you you're not good enough. Then, to survive in the world, you develop a persona, a mask you wear to try and get people to like you. And finally, you have the ideal self, this impossible fantasy version of you that you think you should be in order to finally be loved.
And this is where the whole system just turns on itself. The critic's main job is to take that perfect, fantasy ideal self and hold it up against your real, messy human self. It's a comparison you are set up to lose, every single time.
And because the standard is literally impossible, the verdict is always the same. You failed, you missed the mark again, you're just not good enough. So this machine isn't solving shame, it's mass-producing it, 24/7.
So where does this cruel inner voice even come from? Well, for so many people, it's basically an internal parent. It's the voice of a critical or neglectful or abusive caregiver that you've just absorbed. As a kid, you hear those messages over and over, and as an adult, they don't even need to be there anymore. Their voice has become your voice, living inside your head, judging every little thing you do.
All right, we need to pause here for a second and make a really, really important distinction. Because not all those bad feelings we have about ourselves are the same. We absolutely have to separate shame from guilt.
And this breakdown just makes it so clear. Guilt is all about your actions. It says, I did something bad. But shame is about your identity. It says, I am bad. You see the difference? Guilt is actually a good thing. It's a healthy system. It's your conscience saying, hey, maybe change that behavior. You can resolve it. Shame, on the other hand, feels permanent. It's a destructive system that does nothing but attack your sense of self-worth.
But, and this is a big but, in families with complex trauma, even that healthy guilt system can get all twisted up. You might have been taught that having your own needs or wanting your own things is selfish. So your conscience gets, well, miseducated, and you start to feel this false guilt for perfectly normal, healthy things, like wanting to rest or take time for yourself.
And that little twist with false guilt, it leads us right into our final section. We're about to see how even healthy guilt gets sucked into the shame machine, creating this vicious feedback loop that can feel absolutely inescapable. So picture this. You're living with this core belief that I am bad. For you, making a mistake, any mistake, no matter how small, it isn't just a mistake, it's evidence. It kicks off this really painful, devastating internal chain reaction. It all starts out pretty normal. You mess up and you feel that little pang of guilt. That's your conscience saying, whoops, that wasn't a great action. That's the healthy, corrective emotion doing its job. But then, boom, the shame machine hijacks the whole process. The critic jumps in and says, see, you did a bad thing. And that just proves what I've been telling you all along. You are bad. And just like that, the feeling of guilt becomes pure fuel for the fire of shame.
So here's the bottom line. The whole elaborate system, the critic, the persona, the ideal self, the very thing the brain built to try and protect you from the pain of shame, it ends up becoming a prison. It creates this self-feeding cycle where every single action, every mistake, every feeling is just twisted into more proof that you're worthless.
And that leaves us with a really critical question. I mean, understanding this whole complicated self-sustaining machine is one thing. But if it's literally designed to keep itself going, where on earth do you start to push back? Where's the first place you can jam a wrench in the gears to stop the whole thing from turning? That's definitely something to think about.